Hey guys, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today we have, wow, a very exciting and long-awaited video. And that is my Tower of Dawn book talk. Yes, you heard me correctly, book talk. I haven't done a book talk in a very long time. I also promised this for you guys when I read it back in 2018 and I never did it. So I reread it recently and it is fresh in my noggin. So let's go ahead and talk about it, shall we? This is the 6th book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. This was originally supposed to be a short novella that takes place between the penultimate and the finale. However, as you can see, it kind of got away from Sarah a bit and became a full-length novel as opposed to a novella. And there's actually some really important details in this book regarding the finale. So you definitely have to read this before reading the finale. I feel like that's common knowledge now, but when this book first came out, I feel like there were a lot of people who were boycotting it because it was about Kale, and Kale kind of became a really disliked character. At this point in the series, a lot of the fans were very displeased with what Sarah did to Kale's character. So a lot of people were boycotting this book. But there is some very crucial and important information at the end. Well, especially at the end, but sprinkled throughout that you really do need going into the finale. With that being said, we are following Kale, as I mentioned, and he is on a journey to the southern continent, which is a new place that we had not seen in the world up until this book. And he is doing some things for the other main characters in the series. It's so late in the series that I can't say much more than that. I love this installment in the series. This was, for a long time, my second favorite book in the series. Like when I first read it, I'm like, holy crap, this rivals Queen of Shadows. Like I love this book so much. The second time around rereading it, I think it's my third favorite, only because Heir of Fire creeped up in there and became a favorite that I didn't particularly like the first time around. So, you know, favorites in series are always fluctuating. The more you read them, there's different things that speak to you from different books as you read them at different points in your life. This is still like one of my top favorites from the series, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So before we get into the spoilery section, I do want to say that and I feel like a lot of people were very nervous about some certain topics that Sarah attempts to tackle in this novel because she had attempted to do those same things in the past and hadn't quite done it well. She's not the best at representing minority groups of people, whether that be race, sexuality, able-bodiedness. She's just not the best. Like, this is not a series that I would recommend if you want A+ stellar diversity. There is more of it in the later half of the series than the first half, but it's still, I wouldn't say, done flawlessly. I was very nervous about some of the topics that she was going to tackle in here. I think she did better than in her previous attempt, but I don't know how well it was received. Not of that minority population, and so I would definitely suggest to look into this book and look into the representation and see how people who are of these minority groups, I don't want to spoil the book, which is so dumb. It's so dumb that you can't talk about, she does that too. She will put things in there that are plot devices and plot twists, and that's, you know, somebody's identity should never be a plot twist, but I can't know. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into my spoilery thoughts. Why is it wet all of a sudden? On Throne of Glass. I'm sorry, Tower of Dawn. All right, we're getting into the spoilery territory. Those of you who don't want to be spoiled for this book or clicked on this accidentally and haven't yet read it, now is your time to leave. This is your last warning. We are getting into spoilers now. So as I mentioned before, I was a little hesitant for her to tackle another disabled character because I felt, and I think a lot of people felt, that the disability rep for the lead wasn't particularly well done. There are some really interesting lines that Kale says in this book that I found were much more insightful and much more self-aware in comparison to when she wrote A Lead. He is paralyzed, I think from upper spine down, and Rowan is able to do some Fey magic healing to where it's just his legs. He goes on a journey to the southern continent to visit the healers. There's some really great healer presence in the Southern Continent at the Tor. It's like unparalleled healing compound. Aside from some healers in Doranel, which is like the Feylands, which we'll get into later. But he goes down there with Nezrin, who was a new character in Queen of Shadows. She's a part of the King's Guard, and then eventually becomes the captain. They're trying to rally an army for Aelin and address Chaol's final injury. I forgot where I was going with this. Oh yes. So he talks about, at the beginning of the novel, being like cursed by the chair. Like he really has a negative connotation with the chair, and he hates the chair, and he hates the way it makes him feel. He feels like a lesser person because he's in the chair, and he feels like a lesser man because he's in this chair, and he like has a lot of really negative thoughts towards it and a lot of really like aggressive thoughts towards it. He has a full recovery, and this is like one of the most heartbreaking. I was so sad when I read this part in the first time I read this book. He goes on this miraculous healing journey, and there's a lot of discussion about healing and the mind-body connection of healing. And I work in physical therapy, and I don't even like, none of this clicked with me the first time I read this book, but rereading it, it was just like, I really connected to Irene and to her bond with Chaol, because it's like, she's not a physical therapist, but she kind of is in this world. And not only having to address the like physical ailment, but like the whole mental process that goes into rehab. Like it's not just a physical process, but it's like a whole body experience. And I so often hear my coworkers talk to their patients as if they were like mental professionals, because there's so much to do with like a mental block and a physical block. And I just felt like that was very like well explored in this book. I feel like Chaol really had to deal like with that. He wants to very much just like physically focus on his body and shut out any like trauma he has. And Irene really pushes him to open up and to discuss all the things that are causing him pain. And through that, he is able to overcome his injury. And then at the end of the book, when he's re-injured, it was so traumatic, because as someone who works in PT, any patient who has made tremendous gain, who has made tremendous improvement, and then something happens that halts that progress or regresses them, they so often don't perceive that and like respond to that well. You just feel so hard, like so much for them, because you see them every day go through like the process of getting better, and then when they like re-injure themselves or they come back for the same thing again, it just like really, it makes you sad, because you know they've worked so hard to get where they are. And so like when that happened to Chaol, broke my heart. But he has such a better response after that to his injury. The way that he thinks and approaches the chair and the cane at the end of the book after his re-injury are so dramatically different. It was just a beautiful journey to watch. You know, it's just, it reminded me so much of seeing patients every day at work. And I was reading this book while I was off of work, and it just made me really miss my job. Watching patients overcome things like Chaol does in this book is just, it's very rewarding, obviously for the patient, but for you as well. It makes me so happy to see patients get better like that. And so I really had a strong emotional reaction to this book. I was very proud of him. Very proud of his character growth. He talks about his relationship with Aelin a lot throughout this book. When I was rereading, I think, Crown of Midnight, there is definitely some signs that he and Selena would never have worked, that there was like a lot of resentment towards her that he was harboring, and he harbors that resentment a lot throughout Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows as well. And he really has to face that in this book and has to work through that, and I feel like that was very big of him. It's such like a self-aware process, and a lot of people don't ever get there, and I was proud of him for having that emotional journey as well as this physical journey. I also love Irene so much. As I said before, like I really related to her and the like healing nature and like nurturing nature that she has. Just, she's such a therapist. Someone who has been to PT, like she's such a therapist. She's like, good, great job, but you can do better. And I know you can do better, so let's try that again. The things that she said and personality traits that she had reminded me so much of my coworkers, and I really loved her more on this reread than I had and the first reread. I just love the Southern continent as well. Like I just love all like the rich culture and the rich like colors and like the foods and the aromas and like the scents. Like I feel like I was enveloped in it. I assume we won't be visiting it again in the finale, but if we could have another series down there, that'd be great because I had so much fun. Let's dramatically shift gears here. I was blindsided again by the revelation that Maeve is a Valg queen, because I forgot this valuable piece of information. I learned a lot about the Valg in this book. I don't know like where else you would have learned it had Sarah not included it here. Like I guess it would have been in the finale. There's so many like little important things that we learned about the Valg. I'm glad I reread this before the finale because I forgot like all of them. So we find out in this book that at one point Fae lived on the southern continent, which originally the Fae were only in Wendlin, but then they find out that Fae were here as well. And like the original rip in the world, the original word gate is in the southern continent, which I totally forgot. I don't know why. I just assumed that like the word gate came from like wherever. It wasn't like a specific location that reappeared again and again. Like you could open it wherever, kind of like a portal. It appears from this book that like the word gates are permanent structures, like permanent places that open and close using the word keys or whatever other like special magic they use, I don't know. And so these spiders in the southern continent are guarding this word gate and they're minions of their queen. And we're all like, oh my God, what? And then it's revealed that they're minions of Maeve, and Maeve has them guarding this word gate so that nobody from her home dimension can re-enter. Before we think Maeve just doesn't want the keys destroyed because she wants to use them for her own power, I feel like it's more that she doesn't want anybody from her old realm to ever have the opportunity to come into Aurelia. I can never remember how to pronounce the Throne of Glass world. So if she's in control of the word keys and they're in her possession, she's always guaranteed to be safe. I feel like we were going somewhere with this. This is why book talks are so hard for me, because I just like have ADHD and like things come into my brain and I go off on tangents and then I forget where I was going. We're talking about the Fae being in the southern continent, right? The Fae like bred into the human population in the southern continent to create the healers. Like it was a really strong lineage of Fae healing magic, and that's why the tour is there. That's why there's so many gifted healers, and healers, unlike anything else in Ireland, like these healers are like next level magic wielders. And the only thing that is similar to them is the healers in Doranel, which are surrounding Maeve's compound. So there must be some really important role that healers play in the destruction of Maeve, or in like Maeve's existence, like continuing to live, because she has used all of them as like personal bodyguards. And then there's this whole other very successful group in the southern continent. So is there something else going on down there? So Maeve is surrounding herself with healers in Doranel that are like Fae. And then we learn that the healers in the southern continent are descendants of Fae. So they're kind of like, you know, same-ish group of people. And we also learn that Maeve was married to one of the Valg kings, to the oldest one, Orcus, I think, and then the youngest one is Erwin, and he's the one that's trapped in our land. There's also Anthril, and Anthril's the one that has the magic ring. The ring, we find out, wasn't created by Maeve or the healers or Mala or Mab. Mala and Mab are the two Fae queens that thousands of years ago lived in Doranel. Find out that none of them created the magic ring, and we see the ring a little bit, I think, in Queen of Shadows. It was actually Silba, who is like the goddess of the healers. I've always said that each character seems to represent, manifest, really like exemplify the properties of one of the gods in this realm. And Irene, very obviously Silba. Silba is very highly connected to Irene, just the same way that we see the three-faced goddess with Manon, and we see Mala and Mab with Aelin. Orcan and Hellas are constantly mentioned as well together. So I feel like there is something about each character in relation to one of these gods and goddesses who are stuck in this realm and were not able to be sent back to the other realm like they were supposed to be because Elena was an idiot and used the lock and key incorrectly. We learned all of that in Empire Storms. Basically what I'm trying to get to is Maeve has an owl. She's always described as having an owl with her, having an owl in all of her fan art. The owl is the sigil of the healers, of Silba, not Sybil. It is Silba's like insignia. There's owls all over the tour, all over the Healer on High's office. And at first I was thinking that maybe that meant that Maeve had some kind of like influence in the tour that's been there for thousands of years. There's like some unknown history between the tour and Maeve, because I thought that Maeve sigil was the owl because she's always pictured and depicted with an owl. If that's actually the sigil of Silba, I'm wondering, there's two theories. It would make sense if that sigil was all over the tour, but also Anthral's Fae form was an owl. So my thought is this: is the owl that is living with Maeve and always with her, is it Silba or is it Anthral? Is it a goddess trapped in owl form or is it a Fae trapped in their owl form? I think Anthral was Maeve's lover and then somehow betrayed her. So if that's the case, which I'm feeling like it might have been, then it would make sense if she trapped him in his form for eternity and made him suffer at her side as an owl forever. But I also could see if the healers are so important to Maeve and like there's something beneficial to having them around her to protect her, if she had captured the goddess and made her into an owl as well. So I wonder like which of those two it will end up being, because I feel like it's not just an owl, you know? Man, Maeve is such a sneaky bitch. I'm just thinking all the things that we learned about her in this book. Like we learned that she's outlived every single Fae ever, and there's no real explanation to how she's had such an outstanding lifetime, like longevity, because they say that there are 3 Fae queens, and like earlier in the series there's Maeve, Mala, and Mab. In reality there was actually only 2 Fae queens, Mala and Mab, and when Maeve came to this world she warped their minds into thinking they had a sister. So Mala and Mab die and Maeve lives forever, and it's really unexplained and no one knows how she was able to do this. Well, she's a Val queen, so that makes sense. But like the fact that she can manipulate people like that, like she manipulated them into thinking they had a sister and that she was a Fae queen. She manipulates Rowan into thinking that he has a different mate who is not Aelin. All of these super powerful Fae that she's collected, like Lorcan and Gavriel and Rowan, and she's made them bloodbound to her as this like cadre of like really fucking powerful Fae to protect her while Erwin's free. What happens when Erwin and Maeve meet up? Does Erwin know that Maeve is there? Does Erwin know who Maeve is? Did she make him forget? Like Erwin's really concerned with Aelin. She has the ability to recreate the lock and send him back. But wouldn't he also be like really interested in Maeve and really want to go after her as well? Like he seems really not at all concerned with anything that she's doing. She's kind of been an off the page threat for a long time. And then at the end of Empire of Storms, she captures Aelin. Erwin hunting Aelin and Maeve capturing Aelin. Ooh, what if Maeve captured Aelin to barter with Erwin? What if she's gonna use her as like a bargaining piece? Because she's like plotting how to get rid of Erwin, because she does not want to go back to the land of the darkness. She wants to stay in the Throne of Glass land and wreak havoc and be the all-seeing queen of everything. So what if she uses Aelin as like a bartering chip? Because she's so powerful. Her fire can destroy the Valg. Ultimate enemy, but her weapon too. But I think that every like main character has some kind of godly influence or was chosen by a god, or maybe they're not like gods technically, but they're rather beings of immense power from another world because they did come through. So like what kind of beings would they be? If they came through the gate with the Val Kings and that's like a land of darkness, then what are these other creatures? Because they're gonna take them back with them. I have so many questions. I also totally forgot that Duva was infested with the Valg. I remembered when they started saying like, oh, there's a Valg here, like on the southern continent, like someone's infiltrated your court and they're trying to figure out who it is. There's so many siblings that it could possibly be that I was thinking maybe it was the sibling that had died, or maybe it was one of the like older siblings. And then like out of nowhere, I remember I'm like, oh my God, it's Duva, and no one like predicts her or suspects her because she's pregnant. I'm trying to think of anything else that I like specifically want to talk about. So Nesrin, who I keep forgetting to talk about, she's off in the steppes of the southern continent with one of the princes, Sartak, and he's the leader of the Rucks, which is like this aerial brigade. And baby Rucks are called chicks, and they're constantly referred to as like birds and chicks and with feathers. Could not get out of my head the idea of these full-grown humans riding a giant chick. Like we just took like a little baby brown chick and blew it up to this giant animal. And then I'm thinking that's not what these animals look like, because there's no way that that animal would fly. Like the mechanics of that large of an animal that's that like round with short little legs would be able to get off the ground at all and carry people on it. So then I was like, what do these things look like? Like, what does a ruck look like? I could not picture it in my head. My mom was like, she pictures them as ostriches without the long necks or without the long legs. My mom's picturing ostriches. I'm like, ostriches don't fly. There's also like a lot of physics issues with that. So I Googled it. Basically all the artwork of Kadara is a hippogriff. That makes a lot of sense. Duh. I don't know if like the hippogriff from Harry Potter is like based on a mythological creature. It probably is. Probably something from Greek mythology. And then J.K. Rowling just like adapted it for like her hippogriff. And then if Sarah J. Maas adopted it as her ruck. But the instant I saw this bird with like horse legs and giant wings and more like a horse-shaped body, I was like, okay, this I can picture. I can see how this can fly and carry people and like carry loads. You know, the wyverns were very easy to picture. I feel like she explained them really well. It was very easy to get that she was describing a dragon. The rucks, I felt like they were never really explained very well. My camera overheated. It's been some time. I have no idea what I was talking about, but I did remember while I was on this mini camera break, we have to talk about Falcon. Falcon? Why did it not sound right? No, it is Falcon. I guess when you say it out loud, it sounds like a bird. And I wasn't expecting that. He's an interesting character because he talks about how he is from Aderlin, but he lives in the southern continent. He lives with the Ruck Riders, and he traded years of his life to a Stygian spider in the north. I feel like it was in the Assassin's Blade when Selena is in the Red Desert and she's walking through a market. I think it's this one. And she comes across someone selling spider silk. It appears to be an older man, but he traded years of his life and they took it from like the prime of his life for so many yards of spider silk. And I think it's the same character as Falcon all these many books later in Tower of Dawn. Then we're blindsided by the fact that he's a shapeshifter. He turns into a wolf. I've already read this book, and all of a sudden this giant big wolf comes bounding into the scene to save Nesrin and Sartak, and I immediately thought that it was Fenris, because Fenris can turn into a wolf, or his brother. And then when it's revealed that it's Falcon shapeshifting, I was like, what? I totally forgot about it. And then he has a connection to Lysandra. He talks about how before he left, his brother sired a young girl to a woman that he abandoned. The girl got thrown out on the street as a young child, and Falcon's been looking for her but hasn't been able to find her. Remember, Lysandra gets stuck in a form that's not hers, so she looks nothing like what she did as a child, so he can never find her. And then when Nesrin tells him about her, and he's like on his deathbed, I totally forgot about that. I don't know why I thought that he died. I thought that he died in this book. I'm like, oh no, he's gonna die. He's gonna die. And Nesrin's gonna have to tell Lysandra that she met a family member and that he died and his valiant death that saved her and all these things. But then he made it. I cannot wait for that reunion. I don't think it's going to be like a smooth reunion. I feel like Lysandra is not going to be open and accepting. Also, she's posing as Aelin, and Nesrin doesn't know that. Wow. Can't wait for Kale to introduce her to Dorian and be like, here's my wife. And then for Dorian to be like, yeah, here's my super scary witch girlfriend who tries to kill me. It's just, there's gonna be so many reunions and I'm so excited. I'm also really excited for Aelin and Kale to have a reunion. They both dealt with this trauma individually, but they haven't been together since they've both like resolved it and overcome it. So I'm excited to see how they interact and their reunion in the final book. Also, which couples in Kingdom of Ash are gonna have a baby? Because there's so many, somebody has to. We've got a couple marriages, Rowan and Aelin, Kale and Irene, Nazrin and Sartak better get together. Lysandra and Aedion better freaking get together. That hasn't happened yet and it infuriates me. Lorcan and Elide, who do we think is gonna have a kid? Do we think it's gonna be Aelin and Rowan, or do we think it's going to be Kale and Irene? I feel like that's all I have to say about Tower of Dawn. I feel like I haven't said a whole lot, but I've been sitting here for a really long time and this is going to be a very long video to edit, as are most book talks. But I just feel really rusty that I don't really know what to talk about and I don't know if I covered everything. I haven't filmed one of these in probably like 3 or 4 years. So I'm feeling very rusty and I don't know if I did a good job. I feel like I didn't. I didn't take any notes. I would love to know any other things you guys want to talk about regarding Tower of Dawn in the comments down below. Don't spoil me for Kingdom of Ash or I will be very upset with you. But if there's anything that like I missed or that you want to discuss further, please comment down below. If you enjoyed this, please let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. And until next time, I will talk to you very soon. Bye.